Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There it is, so you don't miss any of our football content this season. It has been, if I might say, fantastic. All right. I don't get him maybe every 6 weeks. Love to have him more. Nick Wright, my buddy at FS1. We should say this. This just broke before we did this, 20 minutes before. Bill Belichick, 3 years, $30 million, will now coach North Carolina. I've said before, he won 44% of his games in the NFL on two different teams, franchises, without Tom Brady. I mean, 4 of 5 in Cleveland, losing records. First year, Bledsoe losing record. Last 2 years, no Brady losing record. And I think the game culturally has changed. Players have more power. It's more of an offensive league. I don't see him being a huge hit in North Carolina. The advantage, it's a terrible conference. It's just, it's really bad. So if he went to the Big Ten or the SEC, I think he'd get crushed. Do you think he has any success at Carolina?
Well, I mean, listen, you obviously know the college game better than I do. But I had a similar instinct, which is the question is, can you win the ACC, or hell, can you just make the ACC championship game? Like, the ACC got two teams in the playoff this year, right? Clemson and SMU. So like there's more than one, there's more than one path. My instant reaction was not really about how good he's going to be at North Carolina. It's about how shocking this is. And this is to me, at least, this is shocking. Colin, 11 months ago, you and I on TV and on the pod talked about, should the following playoff teams, double-digit win teams, fire their head coach to bring in Bill Belichick? The Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Buffalo Bills. It was a if they collapse type of thing when it looked like the season was going to go wrong. That was 11 months ago. For it to be us to narratively be there and now be, because I think he's taking this because legacy and his son, and I get that. But I also think he got the message, buddy, you're probably going to be shut out of the NFL coaching search again. Right. I assumed last year there would be a fight for Bill Belichick. Instead, he got one interview in Atlanta, and they passed on him for a different defensive head coach. And so that to me is
who had been fired.
Right. That to me is shocking. And, I don't want to say enjoy conspiracy theories, because that's not it, but you enjoy kind of, as I do, like thinking about why did this happen? What could be going on behind the scenes? Right. I do wonder how much poison was put in the ear of other NFL owners by Robert Kraft. Because for Belichick to truly believe no one is going to hire me, that to me is shocking. Like truly, truly shocking, to where he preemptively takes this North Carolina job.
Yeah, I think the message for me in this, Belichick reminds me of Bobby Knight, is that Bobby Knight was viewed in his prime as the best coach. He at times could be gruff, mean-spirited. In the end, could not grasp the new culture. Bobby Knight, the one and done. Belichick, player empowerment, rule changes, which Andy Reid has seamlessly bounced through like multiple different cultural changes in the NFL. And then at the end, basically Bobby Knight was just trying to get his son a head coaching job, and nobody would offer this former genius a job. No legitimate school would. And that's Belichick, is that now he's been reduced to, now it's 3 years and $30 million, like Bobby Knight. Basically, he's taking this job to set his son up for a job and can't get any legitimate offers. And I think here's the parallel, is that Bobby was all about retaining power. And that was really at the heart of Bobby Knight's strength, his virtue, and his hindrance late, is that nobody wanted to hire Bobby because you had to basically give total control to him. And that's Bill's problem. His personnel decisions are horrible. Now he's had a couple of defensive hits. He hasn't drafted an offensive Pro Bowl level player probably since Gronk. But it's the unwillingness of older, successful men to relinquish any power, the need for control.
So I do at some point, because you're interested in this like I am, want to discuss how we think Belichick versus Andy is going to play out over the next 3, 5, 10 years. But before we go to that, one of the things that I like doing when I'm on with you is kind of, I don't want to say straying from sports, but we go a lot of places.
Yeah.
Does that worry you for you? And by that I mean, because I think about it, which is like, man, so many legends across so many industries, the ending sucks. Like I thought it was kind of unfair, and I vocally defended him on the show. But I think about broadcasting that there was in October, there was a reigning chorus on social media of, who sucks? Al Michaels and Bob Costas. What are those guys doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. These are like the legends of the industry. But Al was getting bad games, and people didn't like the way Bob called baseball games, even though that's the way he's called baseball games forever. And I'm like, well, that's not a great ending. You brought up Bobby Knight. Most people don't get or don't execute Johnny Carson. And so when you see so many of these guys not figuring out an exit, like what is, I'm not talking like you're not close to the end of your career, but you know what I mean? Like it bounces around in my head. Like, why does nobody why are people not okay leaving? Like, he's accomplished everything. He's got all the money. He seems to be happy socially. Like, I don't get it. And it's concerning.
Yeah. Well, what did Johnny Carson have, who had a great exit that the others didn't? Johnny Carson Productions. That's why I created the volume. I will manage and be an executive.
Run your own company. Yeah.
Not a broadcaster. Yeah. So I enjoy doing that. So I created the volume largely so when networks are not interested, I will move into a management position, and I love that, and a production position.
So why do you think it was not on the board for Bill to be like, when I'm done with the Patriots, I'm just done. Like, I have 6 Super Bowls. I've made 20 plus million for the last however many years. Like, I'm 70 years old. I evidently want to date incredibly young women and travel. Like, why is what that's fascinating to me. Like, why you wouldn't just call it?
Yeah, he probably doesn't have a ton of hobbies, although he does have a boat, and he golfs, so he has enough. It's a good question. If Tom Brady would have left for Tampa and failed, I think he would have been more comfortable just saying, it's over. We were great for each other, and we were never quite the same without each other. But Brady jettisons the Patriots, wins a Super Bowl,
and then almost wins an MVP, and is awesome, and is better than he was his last couple years in New England.
Yes, so I think that put that in, and I don't think Bill would acknowledge that, but they are linked forever.
Forever.
Yeah, Montana and Bill Walsh are linked forever. And Bird and Magic on different teams are linked forever. And so I think when Tom left and succeeded, it puts it raises doubt about a guy that had 5 years in Cleveland, 4 of them losing, lost in his first year with Drew Bledsoe starting, and lost 2 years in a row, and kind of, I mean, Matt Patricia to offensive coordinator. It was a bit of a tone deaf clown show. And so I think there's I think that's part of it. I think we tend to, and this is incredibly unhealthy, we tend to compare ourselves to others. And I think it's just, my journey is much more Johnny Carson. His production company, and I've told you this before, my idol is Oprah. Yeah. It's not a sportscaster, right? So her production company and Carson's production company is much more attractive to me as an ending than it is broadcasting when I'm 74.
Yeah, there's so many of And you see it, I mean, you're seeing it, I feel like, right now with Aaron Rodgers in a different way. And you see it with
Yeah.
athletes more, and it feels different, I guess, because we're more used to it. Um, and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, okay, it's a young man's game. You're not a young man. But it just, I don't know if it's the fame, attention, money being all kind of addictive, but it, Bill Belichick is probably going to be coaching in the fucking Pop-Tarts Bowl next year. And then that's unbelievable. Like, that's really unbelievable when this time last year I was discussing should the Eagles preemptively fire Nick Sirianni to hire Bill Belichick? Should the Bills fire Sean McDermott just to be the first to market for Bill Belichick? And I don't know, man. Like, now listen, somebody will dig this clip up in 30 years when I'm doing Fortnite play-by-play on Twitch because nobody else will give me a job. They'll be like, time comes for us all. But it's
Yeah.
stunning. It's really stunning. And I when I first saw the report a week ago, and shout out to
Yeah.
InsideCarolina.com, which beat everyone on
Yeah.
this story by days every time.
Yeah.
But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, so InsideCarolina.com is just as wrong as they can be and don't care. And then it's like, wait, they're
Yeah.
meeting in Manhattan for 5 hours. Wait, he made a 400-page organizational Bible. Like, oh, this is going to happen. And now it's happening, which does bring me. So the Andy Reid thing, I don't think people realize how close it is. The Shula record.
Yeah.
So Andy's at 296, Shula's at 347, Belichick's at 333. So Andy is 51 wins away. He has, prior to this year, he had coached Mahomes for 6 years. They had 90 wins, regular season and playoffs, those 6 years. That's exactly 15 a year. So if Andy coaches, for 3 more years, he should be right there. And if he coaches for 4, he'll have it. He's 5 playoff wins behind Bill. He'll get that in the next, I would imagine, 3 years as well.
Which is really remarkable when you consider you'd think it would be 30
it's
behind.
Remarkable. It's and so he's going to, unless he retires and he just signed a new 5-year $100 million deal, he's going to catch him in playoff wins and in regular season wins. Let's just say he doesn't catch him in Super Bowls. Let's be conservative and say the Chiefs only win 2 of the next 4. And then he's done and he retires with 5.
All right.
Man, I think what's more compelling? The one more Super Bowl and that Belichick was 3-0 against Andy in the playoffs, which counts, including a Super Bowl, or that Andy won divisions with 4 different quarterbacks at double-digit win seasons with 4 different quarterbacks, made a Super Bowl with a good but not great quarterback, and Belichick won, as you put it, 45% of his games across a decade of coaching, plus when he didn't have, one. They both had the 2 greatest quarterbacks ever. 1, 2, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I think history is going to look more fondly upon Andy. And you've been saying this for a year.
I've been saying if the CTE lawsuit had happened 10 years earlier, Andy Reid would have a couple more Super Bowls and would be viewed as the best coach, because things that were not only allowed, but were promoted during many of Belichick's years, vicious headhunting hits. They were promoted. Coming up Sunday. Yeah. Outlawed. The minute the game was, the vicious, violent hits were outlawed, which they should have been if you look at medical concerns 25 years earlier, that Belichick would have 1 or 2 or 3 and that Andy would have 6 or 7 or 8. I really believe that. So I think what it comes down to is a timing. Jeff Bezos would have been really successful, but the internet and the retail giant allows him to be beyond the greatest bookstore owner ever.
Yeah.
He is the greatest global retailer ever. So I think the timing is a big part of life. And I think Belichick is the beneficiary of a league which allowed basically the rules favor, because years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, what we considered great football was running backs and pounding hits and vicious tackles. And then you realized over time, wow, this is a bad look. We're losing lawsuits. What people really love is great quarterback play and offensive efficiency, and that's what drives the ratings. And so there's far more on television today, and the audience and the platforms are broader, yet the ratings are greater than ever. How is that possible? Because the game is more aesthetically pleasing than 30 years ago. If you watch an old NFL game, it's kind of boring. I mean, it's like 4 sets, 7 plays. So as we have more options, it's one of the only sports where the ratings have skyrocketed over 25 years. And so the game now is its purest and most aesthetically perfect, and Andy dominates the league. In fact, he not only dominates the league, but he often embarrasses the league. I think the only other coach in the league that has the ability to quickly make things great, Sean Payton. Now, Shanahan's great, but he gets very tied to his play sheet. He can struggle late in games. What Sean Payton's doing in Denver is great. Whoa, what is happening here in that division? Like, with a thin roster that was picked to win 5 games. And remember, he went to the Saints. They were the Aints. They were worse than the Jets. And first year, I think they got to the NFC Championship. So, I mean, Sean Payton and Andy, the difference is one has Mahomes, one has Breeze. Both great. One transformational, the best talent all time. But both great. So I think I do consider, it's like saying Picasso or Monet. If art only appreciated one for one time and another for another era. But I do think I think when I look at Andy and contextualize both, I'm like, his ability to win more ways with more unique teams and coaches. And Belichick, by the way, almost always went back to the same coaches. He had a system and it worked with one quarterback.
Well, twofold. One is, and again, I don't know how much people weigh what was your coaching tree and their success, but Andy's coaching tree is like, that to me is like
vast.
When we talk about great coaches historically, and it's like, well, how much do you weigh that Mike Shanahan ultimately, like, his coaching tree is Kyle's, which is McVay's, which is the whole league. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's got to weigh in his greatness.
Yes,
and so that part of Andy's thing, where Bill, obviously, most of the guy who had the most success of his coaching tree is our friend Eric. And other than that, it's a lot of like really dim light. Like, the people say Bill O'Brien, but Bill O'Brien wasn't really his coaching tree as much. All right, he went to college first. I guess he was. Who's the person? Oh, Vrabel. Bill O'Brien is his coaching tree. Vrabel, people assigned to him, but Vrabel never coached for him. Vrabel played for him, went to Ohio State, and is now coached there. But the other point that I wanted to make was, Andy does seem to guarantee you a floor that's like 8 wins. And Bill, we've seen on the front end, in the middle with Bledsoe, and on the back end, did not. Like, now I think he's the greatest defensive mind ever, and I'm not trying to like shit talk a guy who's, clearly right now is the greatest coaching resume ever. But when I do wonder, and this is the last thing I'll say on it, would he have held out hope I'm going to get an NFL job if he was more convinced, if I get Shula's record, I'm keeping it? Or did that not become as important when he's like, hold on a minute. So if I pass Shula in 2026 and then Andy laps me in 2027, what is it? What, you know what I mean? Why does that really matter as much?
And he wasn't getting great offers like Harbaugh got.
Right.
A Bosa, a left tackle, and Herbert, and a non-meddling owner. That's a good job. Bill wasn't getting those offers. If Philadelphia was offered, I think he'd stay for 6 years, because Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, a great roster. But when you're getting bad offers, then he could look at it and go, so I'll be a loser in Cleveland. I'll be a loser in
New Orleans.
Blank, and I only went with Brady. Right. But think about this. What if, I'll cap it with this. let's say Belichick and Andy Reid are music producers. One creates the greatest band ever, but in 2 or 3 other bands, he bombs. Andy Reid has a great band, but several other memorable quality bands as a producer. And you'd go, well, maybe the reason the one guy had the greatest band, he had the greatest lead singer, but this guy created multiple bands that are all-time memorable musical acts.
Flops. The no flops matters to me. Like, I talked with Wilds about this today, and Wilds got angry with me. Wilds is like, nobody cares about how many losing seasons the guy had. I'm like, well, okay, maybe. I was like, but they both coached for an insane length of period of time. Andy has 3 losing seasons and Bill has 8. That's not nothing. It's not everything, but it's not nothing. It's something there.
Right.